License and registration, he can sense your aggravation.
On the head of the fallen angel.
When the world is muttering under the floorboards, stomp even louder.
Time.
Let them know you are alive today.
Or unhum.
Did you know that your hands came with a ripple effect?
Whisper tones unraveling like silk.
Blood, sweat, and tears win by any means poetry.
Sway, look at me. Is a piece of the pie too good for me?
Some may call it rock the mic. We call it poetry.
In the yard, they walk, jog, exercise, some in pairs, but mostly solo, alone. Squats and push-ups, footballs are thrown. Bright colors are forbidden in this place, where there's no team spirit or enthusiasm. But they work out, taking and doing their time. Moves are more mechanical than purposeful, as watchers from barbed-wired towers assess inmates' actions. The occasional laugh or cry of a child too young to comprehend why they shouldn't punctuates the primarily monotone discourse of family members and the few true friends exiting cars on this sacred visitation day. It's cloudy. Umbrellas that won't fit inside provided lockers are left in the mostly nondescript cars and trucks that sprinkled this parking lot. One mother's underwire bra prevents her entry. Minutes later, she exits her car, less resolute in her walk, but determined nonetheless to deliver her promised package of 3 white tees and 2 pairs of plain faded jeans. The guard now allows her in. Things are quiet here. Flags fly freely in the breeze, as if mocking those inside, waving atop steepled buildings that hold dreams, like the jeans of inmates, faded and worn by the passage of time.
Hello, and welcome, Sojourn with Words family. I'm your host, Sistah Joy, and once again, we are bringing poetry to the airwaves. We're bringing one of the best poets that I know that presents villanelles, but I'm getting ahead of myself because I want to make sure that our guest poet, Claudia Gary, is prepared to share in a way that is comfortable for her. Sojourn with Words is coming out of Prince George's County, Maryland, and we are presenting poetry, poetry, poetry. Claudia Gary, welcome to Sojourn with Words.
Thank you. I'm sorry I'm having trouble with my screen. Yeah, thank you, Sistah Joy. This is really an honor. And hope it will stay now, the monitor. Okay.
Well, I'm going to share some bio information about Claudia, and then we'll get into our interview. So, number 1, Claudia Gary is one who is not just proficient in the area of writing poetry, she teaches poetry. She teaches workshops on villanelle, the sonnet, natural meter, freedom with form, poetry versus trauma, etc. at the Writer Center. and that's in Bethesda, Maryland, for those that are not familiar, but also elsewhere. Now, Claudia is the author of Humor Me. Yes, Humor Me, which came out in 2006, and several chapbooks. Most recently, Genetic Revisionism, which came out in 2019. Her poems are internationally published and anthologized. She is a 3-time finalist in the Howard Nemerov Sonnet Contest and has been a semifinalist for the Anthony Hecht Prize, Waywiser, a Pushcart Prize nominee, and an honorable mentionee in the Able Muse Book Contest. Claudia has chaired panels on poetry and music, poetry and science, and the sonnet in 2016 at the West Chester University, that's in Pennsylvania, Poetry Conference, and on poetry and music at the Frost Farm Poetry Conference. She's also a health journalist, a visual artist, and a composer of tonal songs and chamber music. Please welcome our extreme wonderful poet, Claudia Gary, to Sojourn with Words. Claudia.
Thank you so much, Sister Joy. This is really great to be here.
Very, very happy to have you. I've admired your work with villanelles for years in particular. So I'm very happy that you're hopefully be able to share a bit about particular writing forms, because, you know, there are many of us that primarily write free verse or open verse. But when I think about poets that I know that write form poetry, you're the top of that list. Absolutely.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, let's see. You've had hundreds of metrical or formal poems published, as well as a full-length book, several chapbooks, and poems in about a dozen anthologies. So how did you become interested in poetry that has meter and form? And does it have anything to do with your involvement in singing and in setting poems to music?
Yes, it does. I've been singing and studying and playing music since childhood. And later I studied music composition. So this may be why I've always preferred poetry that contains musical aspects, such as meter and rhyme. Although I also write some free verse too. Some of my early favorites were Robert Louis Stevenson's A Child's Garden of Verses. In the past 3 decades, I've really enjoyed finding many living poets who also write in meter and traditional forms, but in contemporary and not archaic language. This combination strikes me as a kind of counterpoint.
Okay, I get that. All right. Well, now, your latest chapbook is Genetic Revisionism, inspired by the sciences and mathematics. Where did this idea come from?
Well, I grew up watching the space program. And although I focused on English and the humanities, I was always very fascinated by science. So in the early 1990s, I was intrigued to find Frederick Turner's article, The Neural Lyre. That's L-Y-R-E, the stringed instrument, which on the cover of the book, there's a picture of that growing out of a strand of DNA, sort of a painting. So in The Neural Lyre, Turner explored how our brains are in certain ways wired for poetry. Soon after that, when I read about physicist George Smoot's discovery of what he called ripples in the fabric of space-time that were formed eons ago by the Big Bang, I couldn't resist writing a poem about that. And I've continued writing poems about science from time to time. So genetic revisionism grew out of that. Meanwhile, I also continued collecting information on what I would call the science of poetry. And in 2019, I created a course about it, which I proposed to the FAES, Foundation for Advanced Education in the Sciences, located on the campus of NIH. And they accepted my proposal. I taught the course that spring. Later, I took it to the Writer Center, where I had already been teaching other workshops since 2017. And I've continued to teach this one also at the Writer Center under a different title.
Okay. Now, tell me, do you consider yourself more of a poet or more of a scientist or more of a musician?
Well, definitely more of a poet and musician. I love science, but I'm not a scientist.
Okay. Well, that's interesting and intriguing to me to think about the immersing yourself so fully into science, and you're not a scientist. Well, that's something that we'll have to see how that plays out when we hear your poetry today. So that'll be coming up fairly soon. Okay. Now, we know that in the 1990s and the early 2000s, you were a poetry editor, an organizer of poetry readings, and an editor and writer for veterans magazines. How did these things influence your poetry?
Right. And I believe I saw you once at one of these readings from veterans poetry readings. At
exactly.
The yes. Yeah. That was probably the first time we met. Back in the early 1990s, I started the Leesburg Poetry and Chamber Music series, as well as some bookstore events in DC. And that gave me the opportunity to work with other poets and musicians locally, as well as to meet and host some well-known poets from out of town, including Dana Gioia, Grace Cavalieri, Frederick Firestein, Frederick Turner, Annie Finch, George Garrett, Robert McDowell, Kelly Cherry, Greg Williamson, Anthony Hecht, Susan McLean, Gail White, Richard Moore, and many others. I also became poetry editor of Edge City Review, which gave me a chance to see that some really good poetry was being written in meter and form. Well, some people were going around saying it was impossible to write rhymed and metrical poetry in English without sounding archaic. Others were just doing that. In 2000, as a day job, I became senior editor of Vietnam Magazine, a history magazine about the American War in Vietnam. I stayed on until 2009. It was very involving and grounded me in a way no job had ever before. The fact that I was editing nonfiction articles nearly every day, including many first-person accounts, sharpened my skills, including for poetry. Writing within length limits and creating pull quotes and headlines helped me learn to be concise and to get right to the heart of a subject. All of this works in both prose and poetry. After I left that magazine, I was a contributing writer for the VVA Veteran, the magazine of the Vietnam Veterans of America, from 2010 to 2020, often writing about health science, which is also an interest of mine. So another benefit of organizing events was that I learned about and got to attend the very first installment of a great annual event that started in 1995, when Dana Gioia and Michael Pike launched the Westchester University Poetry Conference in Pennsylvania. And that has continued through this year, although, of course, it took a break during the pandemic. The first conference was keynoted by Richard Wilbur. Currently, the conference is chaired by Dr. Cherise Pollard. Meanwhile, at least two other meter and form-friendly conferences also began and continue. One in Western Colorado, coordinated by Think Journal, and one at the Frost Farm, the Robert Frost Farm in Derry, New Hampshire.
Okay, well, you are
that's a lot.
You are truly one busy lady, but both poet and editor and doing work. I believe one of the poets, one of the veteran poets that we may know jointly is Richard Epstein, who does wonderful work with the veterans group Memorial Day Writers Project.
Right.
He's often up at Bethesda Writers Center, but he does his biannual event both on Memorial
He hosts
that Mall and Veterans Day. So I missed it this year.
That's a great event. Yeah,
great veteran poets come out, and those who support and appreciate the work that they're doing. Although I'm just very honored to have met persons like Richard and yourself, who are contributing so very beautifully to the.
Thank you. Although I'm not a veteran.
Right. And same here.
Yeah.
But that's the thing of it. Richard and the group that meets on the National Mall, they welcome all who embrace the appreciation of veterans. And so I've been a part of that group now for, oh gosh, I guess 8, 9, possibly 10 years. I'm not even sure. But
That's great.
These are some of the arenas that we find ourselves in. What are you currently working on? We have just a very few more minutes left, but let's let
Okay, sure. Yeah. Well, for one thing, I've compiled and edited the selected poems and essays of Richard Moore, who was a remarkable poet who was my good friend and mentor from 1997 and until he passed away in 2009. These 2 books are both under contract and should be ready to publish soon, next year, I hope. His selected poems are just delightful, and his book of essays on poetry, The Rule That Liberates, first came out in 1994, and the volume I've put together is an expanded edition, which I believe will be an amazing teaching tool. Meanwhile, of course, I keep writing poems, and I have 2 or 3 unpublished full-length poetry manuscripts, which have won some, almost prizes, but are still unpublished. One of them is a memoir in the form of sonnets and other poems. I've also been working on a number of songs, and that is musical settings of poems. And last October, I presented, that's in 2022, I presented some of my songs and a paper about the process of setting poetry to music in a seminar at the ALSCW conference. I revised the paper into an article which has since been published in Expansive Poetry Online, as well as on a website created by the seminar leader, Diana Seneschal. So I'm hoping to do more composing in the future, maybe eventually write only music.
Okay, well, Claudia, you have so much information to share, but we want to hear some of your poetry as well. Before we transition to your poetry, how can our viewers be in touch with you?
Well, the Poets and Writers website has a directory, and you can find me there at pw.org/content/Claudia_Gary. So, or you can just look me up there, Poets and Writers, and then, my name or Claudia Gary poem as a search parameter. And I love teaching, and you'll see.
Okay, well, Claudia, we are now at that transition point where we get to hear your wonderful poetry. So we're going to take about another 10 minutes or so to hear what you care to share, to let the Sojourn with Words viewers know. This is poetry by Claudia Gary.
Thank you, Joy. So first, I'd like to read a villanelle, which is in my first book, Humor Me, The Topiarist. This was also in the anthology called Villanelles from Everyman Press. The Topiarist. Out of a stately helical display of shrubbery, new leaves poke into view. The topiarist has been called away, or so I hope. Maybe his mind's astray, letting once hidden branches reach askew out of a stately helical display. Dignified structures, spiked with disarray, regress to common unschooled English you. The topiarist has been called away to shape his own life, and his protege has found its sense of humor. Look what grew out of a stately helical display. Stalks make alarming gestures as they sway in wind, claiming the recognition due the topiarist. He's been called away, and suddenly each leaf's on holiday. A gentle spiral yields to curlicue out of a stately helix. Let us play. The topiarist has been called away. And that's the leaves speaking at the end. And of course, the villanelle has a set pattern of repetitions, which you probably noticed. My next book, which is the chapbook, Bikini Buyer's Remorse, which is subtitled Bikini Buyer's Remorse and Other Skimpy Poems by Claudia Gary. Here's the NSA replies to allegations of pillow talk surveillance. This was in response to something that appeared in the news years ago. We know you're not a terrorist. We hate this drastic measure, but hope our needs can coexist. We feel your pain and pleasure. And then this is called an F word. My ears are ringing. Did you say forever? Oh, how dare you? I would have said it first, but I didn't want to scare you. And then here is a sonnet, but this sonnet is in monometer, just one foot on each line. So one iamb on each line. This is called Slip of a Sonnet. About to lose your muse, you pout and shout profuse adieus, without an ear for note or phrase, and here promote malaise. Next, I'm going to read something from Let's Get Out of Here, Poems of War, Love, and Peace of Mind. Also a chapbook. A Late Crossing. And this is a reflection on White's Ferry, which unfortunately is out of commission now between Montgomery County and Loudoun County, and hopefully it will be back. A late crossing. Out on the river's middle, where I hear and feel nothing for several milliseconds, despite the purring ferry motor's call to consciousness as usual, he floats. Time, with a fishing pole, taking a breather as far as possible from anyone. No matter that the fish are sparse or nervous or indifferent, no matter that the pull, the line's awakening has not arrived all afternoon, he's out there with a hook, a lure, a sinker, and nothing to lose. He loses it. It skips over the smooth Potomac surface, vaults through my car window, settles on me. The ferryman approaches. He wants my ticket. There's a jolt, a rumble, as other drivers reignite their engines. Time has returned from break, and I'm amazed to see I've still got nothing. This next one is called Refugees. This was published in Poet Lore magazine. Refugees. When the interval peace would not hold, we were placed in a flat-bottomed cup, shaken up and spilled out on a table, where if some of us matched, they remained, while the others were shaken once more, till a pattern prevailed. Spots were counted, then the players recorded their scores, threw us back in the cup, and continued. We adapted, conversing in spots, never hoping to settle or thrive, nor recover our senses for too long. When the interval war was played out, we went searching about for our voices. And next I'll read something from Epicurograms. This is called Blues Manque, and this is another villanelle. Blues Manque. I've suffered, but I can't quite sing the blues. My troubles are occasional, not chronic. My angst is true, but not the kind you'd use against the everyday to find or lose your heart. My chords are major and harmonic. I've suffered, but I don't dare sing the blues. Any attempt would probably amuse, but not in ways your songs have made iconic. Your angst is true, while mine's nothing to use in threatening to blow a major fuse or skip to Paris on the supersonic. I've not suffered enough to sing the blues. Saying I have is asking for a bruise. You'll throw tomatoes. They'll be hydroponic. This angst is true, but nothing I can use to make you say mine is the pain you choose. The plates I spin are porcelain, not tectonic. I suffer from a need to sing the blues with insufficient angst, too kind to use. And then from Genetic Revisionism, I'll read Long Distance. How are we doing with time?
Oh, we've got about 4 more minutes.
Okay. This is probably just right. Long Distance. And this is yet another villanelle. Long Distance. He's talking to his girlfriend on the phone beside a whirling, wheezing cappuccino machine. He never has to feel alone. Eliciting an unexpected moan was more than he had hoped. But what did he know? When talking to his girlfriend on the phone, there is no need for florid pheromone, no risk of rearranging the amino. Machines can neither make him feel alone nor cure him if he does. He's on his own. Closing his eyes, he senses a neutrino is passing through his girlfriend and her phone. She isn't here, though her location's known. Embracing now a paradox of Zeno, and needing no machines to feel alone, he wanders as a cloud, but in the zone. He's neither here nor there, so how do we know he's talking to his girlfriend on the phone? Even machines can tell he's not alone. And if I have one more minute for this, there's a 4-liner called Video Call.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. You are not here. I am not there. You try and fail to muss my hair. To no avail, we stare and stare till eyes go blear. It's so unfair.
Oh, wonderful. Claudia Gary, thank you. I love the rhythm and flow of your poetry. There was one line that I caught that really, when you said, skip to Paris on the supersonic. I've done that. And that
really?
line,
oh, wow.
Yes, going from London to Paris. And
that must be wonderful.
It really was. But all of your poetry is so, so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Again, for our viewers that want to be in touch, Claudia is available online. And is there an email for direct contact?
Sure. Claudia Gary 611 at gmail.com. That's ClaudiaGary 611 at gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, Claudia, you bring
happy to hear from you.
Yes, you bring such unique perspective to poetry, and we love being able to introduce information as well as poetry. You educate us, and certainly I hope that our viewers will delve into the world of villanelles and other form poetry. It's a whole new world, and it's one that it's challenging, and the result is so rewarding. So that closes out our session for today with, Claudia Gary here on Sojourn with Words. We are thrilled to now be in our 18th year on CTV, coming out of Prince George's County, Maryland, here in the United States. And we believe that we are offering quality in the arts to the world. So thank you, Claudia. And once again, I'm Sistah Joy, and we look forward to seeing you next time right here on Sojourn with Words.